Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hello, Michelle Seiler Tucker. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting, Life Unscripted. I'm so grateful to have you here today. We're going to talk about one of the biggest topics we get asked on Savvy, and that is to cover all things related to sales and profit, because if you're not growing your business, you're probably going to be out of business in very short order. But you are a super sales expert, the founder and CEO of Seiler Tucker Incorporated, and you're going to discuss how we can avoid making the 10 biggest profit mistakes that businesses often make. But before we go there, I'd like for you to share a little bit about your backstory and how you came to the whole business world.
Sure. So, people ask me that all the time. Did you just decide one day you're going to sell companies? And no, but I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. Even as a little girl, I wasn't your typical little girl. I didn't play with dolls. I didn't play with toys. I played with pen and paper. And I would walk up to complete strangers at the bank, church, grocery stores. And I would just walk up and say, "Hey, I'm Michelle. What do you do? How do you do it? How'd you get started?" So I was interested in entrepreneurship at the age of 7, 8. And, I told my mom, I'm never going to work for anybody. I'm never going to get a job. And so I started owning many different companies in different industries. I did get that job at Xerox, Fortune 500 company. And Xerox ended up promoting me within 6 months to vice president over the region division. So I had about 150 sales reps underneath me, 100 to 150. And I just realized how much I hated it.
No.
Yeah.
Now, you were doing sales there. Did you always love sales, or did you see it an end to a means to growing businesses?
I've always loved sales. I've always loved entrepreneurship. I love, solving problems. I like helping people. I like, building relationships that last a lifetime.
Yeah.
And I liked it at Xerox, but then when I was promoted, I wasn't selling anymore. I was managing unruly preschoolers. And we were having meetings to schedule more follow-up meetings. And, just to do paperwork, and you couldn't get anything pushed through. There was so much bureaucracy, and, everybody had to agree. And I just said, look, I don't want to do this anymore. So I ended up leaving Xerox and starting my own franchise development, franchise consulting, and franchise sales company. And I was equity partner with a few different franchisors, and I would blow them up. So I would handle all the sales, I'd handle the development, I'd handle, getting their franchise locations up and running, and help them hire their staff, help them run their companies. And so many buyers kept asking me, and sellers too, they would come to me and say, "Hey, do you sell businesses?" I'm like, "No, I just specialize in franchising." Buyers would say, "Do you have any existing businesses? I don't want to buy a franchise." And after listening to that for about 6 months to a year, I'm like, there's got to be something here. The universe is talking to me, so I need to listen to the universe.
Yeah.
And that's when I transitioned into mergers and acquisitions about, I think it was back in 2000.
So it's interesting. You were getting the call from the marketplace that this is what we want, not franchise. And you listened to the call, which is great. That's how a lot of business owners end up getting started. They had this need, desire, or even pain point themselves. And they said, I'm not seeing it out there. People need it, want it. I need it. Why not create it? Now, you're going to talk today about some of the mistakes, or 10 biggest mistakes you've seen as far as profit mistakes that businesses make. What have you noticed working with so many businesses that are some of the mistakes they make?
Well, pretty much all the mistakes are the same. So, mistakes are not, it doesn't matter about the industry. Mistakes are made across every industry you can imagine. And the biggest mistake is when I wrote Exit Rich, Steve Forbes endorsed my book, Exit Rich, and Steve Forbes says 80% of businesses will never sell. 80%. M&A Source says 90% of businesses on the market will never sell. So that means you have a 10 to 20% chance of success on selling your company, especially selling your company for your desired sales price, your desired price tag. And the biggest mistake that I see business owners make is they don't think about selling. They don't plan for their exit. They just continue to work in their business instead of on their business. And they don't think about selling until a catastrophic event occurs. And that could be internal or external. Internal are health issues, partners disputes, divorce, death. External is a pandemic that we've all been experiencing around the world for the last 2.5 years. And I'll give you a perfect example. I had a lady that called me from Dallas, Texas. Her husband dropped dead of a heart attack at the age of 40.
Well,
Left her with a mountain of debt. She was in her early 30s. She knew nothing about the business. And she called me to see if I could sell it for her. And unfortunately, I couldn't. I started asking her a series of questions. How many employees did he have? Does he have any processes? Where's the process manuals? Where's the training manual? Where's all this stuff? And unfortunately, when he died, the business died because he didn't have a business. And that's another mistake, is most business owners think that they've created a business when really what they've created is a job that they go to work at every day, a glorified job, versus a business that actually works for them.
And you know what I'm getting from you, Michelle? It's not just that they created a job, is that now they're owned by the job. At least if you worked for someone else and you've made an agreement, I work 9 to 5 or whatever it is, you get off the clock, you go home and you get to breathe easy. If you created this glorified job, now you're married to it and you can never leave it. You stop working, you don't make money.
That's right. You stop working, you don't make money. I mean, and the whole reason we go into business in the first place is to have financial freedom, to have a better quality of life, to spend time with our family, our children. I talked to a business owner the other day. He's been in business 15 years. And he said, Michelle, I haven't taken a vacation in 9 years. And he says, and I've missed all of my kids' soccer games, plays, gymnastics. He's missed everything. And I'm like, well, why are you in business? That's not why we go into business. And so anyway, that happens more often than not. So again, the biggest mistake is not planning your end game, not planning your exit from the beginning of buying or starting a business. And
I'm also getting from you, maybe they don't have an exit plan, but it seems to me they don't have the day-to-day plan either. If you're just coming in.
Yeah, they don't have the day-to-day plan. And the day-to-day plan is, number one, we talk about the GPS exit model and exit ridge. And that's really, really creating your exit plan from the beginning. And I have 6 steps to your GPS exit model. And then your day-to-day plan, Christina, is building that infrastructure. And, when you build a house, what does a contractor do? They start digging deep in the foundation. Or laying the foundation. They start making sure the piping is there, they make sure the wiring's there, they make sure everything's there. And then, they build this hopefully sturdy house that will resist, different winds, hurricanes and tornadoes, etc. They come to Texas and Louisiana. And so we have to do the same thing with our business. We have to build a solid foundation based upon what I call an exit rich, which are the 6 P's. Because if you don't, then you're not going to weather the financial storms that come your way. So the 6 P's are huge. The GPS X model and the 6 P's is what every single business owner should incorporate immediately.
And, one thing I've heard from quite a few business owners is, I don't have time to train new people or to get processes up and go. I'm like, you don't have time not to have processes in place and train new people. Because if you are just kind of willy-nilling it and going from day to day, every single day you're going to not succeed, because the new person comes in, they're not going to know what to do. They're going to do what they think is best, but is it really in the best interest of your business?
Yeah, 1,000%. And that's why people is the number 1 P in my 6P process plan. I can't get away from the P's. But people's number 1, because, Zig Ziglar said, you don't build a business, you build people, and people build the business. Otherwise, you just, again, have a glorified job. So business owners really have to focus on their strengths, hire their weaknesses. They need to work on their business, not in it. And they need to really build those people. And yes, if you're not a trainer, if you're not good at human resources or hiring people and stuff, then you need to get someone who is.
What I'm thinking, let's say you're a tech guy and you're putting together as a salesperson or as a business owner a tech gadget or app. and you have to hire all the other P's from HR, whatever. Now, let's say you don't know what to look for. Where do they begin to look for great talent where they know they're getting someone who's going to help move them forward? Is there any suggestions in that area?
Of course. But that, that's always the hardest piece. The hardest piece is always, where do I prospect? Where do I look? Where do I get the best people? Then how do I test them to make sure they're the best people? How do I train them, etc. The one thing I always say first before you start looking is really identify the seats in your company. What seats are you trying to fill? And then really list out the who's in your company. Who answers the phone? Who handles marketing? Who handles legal, accounting, manufacturing, software, distribution, quality control? The list goes on and on. Once you figure that out, then start really putting together your job descriptions so you're crystal clear. Because what happens is people start prospecting through Indeed, ZipRecruiter, they'll go to LinkedIn, but they're not clear on what they're really looking for. You got to get crystal clear on what your objectives are, what seats you're filling, and the who question. And, the clue here is that you should never be next to the who, Christina, because we're really wanting to build a business from without you. Yeah. But I find, we hire off of Indeed. We use SIP sometimes. LinkedIn has been a good strategy for us. And, LinkedIn has worked, but you got to be very careful. And, we've all be careful with LinkedIn. And here's the reason why. Right now, people are just leaving their current job that they've been at for a few years, just so that they can make, $1 more, $1,000 more, or whatever the number is. And I don't really want those people, because if they're going to leave their current employer because of $1 or $1,000 or whatever the number is, then I'm not looking for somebody who's just looking for more money. I'm looking for somebody who's looking for a career path, looking to be part of the company, looking to have, maybe, really be a part of that company as almost as a co-owner. Almost look at my team as co-owners, because without them, we don't have a company. Yeah. So they really are co-owners. You can try recruiters. Recruiters are very tough. I've tried recruiters in the past, and they just do what you do. They go to Indeed, they go to LinkedIn. Yeah. I always say also the best resource is networking yourself. And when you go to different meetings and stuff, network throughout the different meetings. If you see a really good waitress, now it depends on what positions you're looking for. You're not going to find a CEO or a CFO or a COO, but if you're looking for like a real good administrative assistant, or somebody who's maybe customer service, and you see a waitress that's really, really good, or you see somebody selling cars that impressed you, recruit from other industries.
You've touched on so many great points. I think one of the things I found for a lot of business owners, they get trapped looking at, what does a piece of paper say in front of me? The resume, which often, you can mess with it, and often the information might not even be valid. But you're having an experience as, say, you need someone in customer service, you go to this restaurant and this waitress is giving you top-notch customer service. That's someone you want in your business. Thinking kind of outside the box instead of thinking what narrowly fits inside of whatever they have on LinkedIn for customer service. And I love the fact that you're saying that you can go to a number of these places, but don't get pigeonholed in having to see it one way or another.
Yeah, 1,000%. And then you also have to test. You have, trust but verify. You have to test. You have to check the references. And, because people lie on their resumes. I just had an interview for a marketing position with a gentleman, and he lists every skill. I'm like, oh my God, I have to have him. Videography, photography, SEO, Google AdWords, Facebook ads, etc. And then when I talk to him, I come to find out he's only a teacher. He's never used any of those skills in a business environment. And he's SEO certified, Google certified, but he's never used it. So he has zero experience, even though he said those are his core competencies, and he has years of experience. So people lie. So when I tested him, he had a 13% in attention to detail. 13.
Wow.
We don't hire unless our people are at least in the 90%. So you really have to get crystal clear on what are you looking for? What are those attributes? What are those core competencies you can't live without? I can't live without attention to detail. If you don't have attention to detail, you can't be a part of my team. Yeah. And I mean, we have a team of analysts. You know, they got to be really good at numbers. So they have to score the 90 percentile. Otherwise, we're not going to bring them on. So you really got to run testing, like I said, check references, etc. And just make sure you're putting the right people in the right seats, because so many people are just so quick to hire. They grab a body, they stick it in the seat, and then they wonder why that person's not performing. You can't put a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah. And you mentioned something else. I'm, you said if someone comes in and their reason for leaving the last job is, oh, I just want an extra $1,000. They're not paying me enough. Well, next year, you're not going to pay them enough because they're going to want more and more and more. But what are you bringing to the table here? The question should be is, I want to serve. What can I do to serve this business I'm coming to interview at? Not what am I getting? The minute you get, I'm getting something or I want something, they're a taker, not a giver.
Yes. And I find that, so we kind of stopped using LinkedIn for that reason, because they're all employed and everybody we talk. Now we it worked for us for a couple of people, but for the majority, everybody that we talked to was leaving because they want more money.
Yeah.
Or they talk really, really, really bad about their employer, which I'm not going to hire somebody that's going to talk bad about their employer.
Hello, never do that, even if they're the worst employer ever.
Yes, and never leave without notice. When they sit there and tell me, oh, I can start immediately, I'm like, aren't you currently employed? Yes, but I don't care. My boss is terrible. Well, I'm sorry, this interview is over. I don't care how bad your boss is, and our boss is really that bad. I mean, at the end of the day, you need to be professional and you have to give professional notice. Just because somebody might be treating you bad doesn't mean you do the same.
No, yeah. And it really does reflect. I love that we're talking about this, because both business owners, or maybe someone listening in who isn't a business owner, will hopefully hear this and heed the advice that it's a two-way street. You're going to be looked at both. And also, let's talk about social media, how you present yourself on social media. I'd say that a business owner looking for great talent, go to their social media, because how they portray themselves out in public is probably how they're going to come to work, and how you do one thing is how you're going to do business. And
that's very true. I mean, we had a marketing person that worked for us, and I made the mistake and didn't go to social media. And this person has pictures of her in bikinis, and everything else. And I don't want my people to portray themselves bikini as a profile picture.
You might look great, but you don't need to be showing the world that. Have a little decorum. Yeah. So, I mean, this is some great tips just to get started. And I want everyone to find out how they can find out even more so they don't make these same mistakes. How do they find out and get a copy of Exit Rich? How do they do that?
Yeah, we will absolutely tell them that. I would love to come back and talk about the other 5 Ps.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we could have you here for a couple of hours. I'm sure it's very in-depth. But
So they can find me at STI, which stands for Seiler Tucker Incorporated. And they can go to seilertucker.com, but you can also go to STI@360.com, because all of my websites and everything is there at STI360.com. And if you want to get Exit Rich, you can get the printed version. We're in 99 Hudson bookstores. We're on Amazon. We're on Barnes & Noble. So go to your bookstore, go online. You can also go to exitrichbook.com if you want to buy directly from us. And you, if you want the audio version, which only came out a couple months ago, you can get that on Audible, Amazon. You can get that at Apple, wherever you like to buy your favorite audiobooks. And it's really, I think it's still like $4 right now, $3 to $4 for the audiobook. So it's a great buy.
It is, and no excuse. There's plenty of places to go get it if you're running, and I don't have time. Yes, you do. You can go listen as you run to your next appointment. I just have to thank you again, Michelle, for sharing your great wisdom today on Savvy Broadcasting. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Thanks for having me on.
You betcha.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.